Ma'am, I need to verify your information. Please leave this cabin. A shove. No apology. Amidst the crowded first-class cabin, indifferent gazes and whispered snickers, but the woman pushed aside that day was not just an ordinary passenger. She was Naomi Carter, CEO of one of the leading technology firms in America. And that shove, which seemed like the ultimate humiliation, became the catalyst for a revolution in the entire airline industry. From an excluded passenger, she became the one to rewrite global standards. From a slammed door, she opened a new sky for millions of those who had been sidelined. This is not a story of revenge. This is a journey of rising through unwavering determination, intellect, and a heart that refuses to accept injustice as the norm. You are about to hear a true story. That feels like a movie. If you believe we deserve a more just world, share this video and subscribe to the channel to not miss any more inspiring journeys ahead. Let's begin the story of Naomi Carter, the woman who turned a push into a magnificent takeoff. When flight attendant Clare pushed Naomi Carter off Pacific Jet Flight 703, she thought she was simply dealing with a misplaced passenger in first class. But Clare was terribly wrong. Behind Naomi's calm demeanor and perfectly tailored expensive suit was the brilliant CEO of Lumina Systems, a woman who had built an empire by turning every obstacle into a stepping stone. Naomi stood in the terminal, her expression composed despite the public humiliation. She pulled out her phone and made a simple call, but that phone call set off an unstoppable chain of events. Within days, an online outrage exploded, and within weeks, Congress began to take notice. Clare never imagined that such a seemingly simple act would unintentionally propel Naomi to new heights, becoming the woman who not only dared to challenge an airline, but also took on an entire industry filled with biases. That push wasn't the end of Naomi's journey. It was the first ellipsis. The digital alarm on Naomi's bedside flashed at 4:30 a.m., but she had already been awake for a few minutes. Years of waking up early and working through the night had conditioned her to rise before the alarm went off. Naomi gently slid out of bed, walked over to her meditation cushion by the large window overlooking Vermont City, still peacefully asleep. 20 minutes of deep breathing helped her center her mind for the day ahead. Afterward, she moved to her desk, where several screens displayed market indices before trading hours. Her eyes quickly scanned the numbers. Lumina Systems' stock was slightly up, a good sign ahead of the shareholder meeting at Lakeside Bay. Before heading to the bathroom, Naomi paused in front of a photo of her old mentor, Eliza Monroe, hanging on the wall. She gently touched the frame. "Another big day," Naomi whispered. As she passed the hallway leading to the kitchen, Naomi glanced at the wall of achievements she had amassed by the age of 36, her MBA from Eastbridge University, her face on the cover of Tech World magazine, the Innovators Under 35 Award. But the one she always lingered on the longest was a piece of yellowed handwritten paper. "Don't let anyone decide how high you fly." It was the note her mother had left her the day Naomi left home to attend college, and it had been her driving force ever since. 2 hours later, the driver pulled up at Pearlview International Airport. Naomi, dressed in a charcoal gray suit with a small carry-on and an Avenoir briefcase, confidently walked into the security area. Although she was a frequent flyer with the highest tier status, Naomi was directed to the secondary screening area. "Random check, ma'am," the security officer said. Without looking at her, Naomi took a deep breath. This was the third time in recent flights that she had been randomly selected for extra screening. Meanwhile, other businessmen, mostly white men, breezed through. After clearing security, Naomi entered the Pacific Jet first-class lounge. With nearly an hour until her flight to Lakeside Bay, she took the opportunity to review her presentation. The receptionist smiled at her. "Good morning. Welcome to the Pacific Jet Prestige Lounge. May I see your membership card?" Naomi handed over her prestige sapphire card and flight ticket. The receptionist's smile faltered slightly before regaining professionalism. "Please, Ms. Carter." Naomi chose a quiet corner of the lounge. Another flight attendant approached. "Would you like something to drink, ginger soda or cranberry juice?" Naomi looked up from her tablet. "Please bring me a glass of Glenholt, 18-year-old neat." The flight attendant blinked. "I'm sorry, ma'am. Premium liquor is only served to Prestige Sapphire members or their guests." "I am a Prestige Sapphire," Naomi replied calmly, handing back the card. "I've been a member for 5 years." "Oh, my apologies, ma'am," the attendant stammered. I thought you were waiting for someone. I'll bring the drink right away." Naomi returned to her work, not bothered by the small injustice she had learned. Only expend energy on worthy battles. In the staff area of the terminal, Claire Benson was reapplying her lipstick in the bathroom mirror. Her hair was neatly styled as per regulation, her Pacific Jet uniform flawless, but the dark circles under her eyes told a different story. "You look exhausted," her colleague Amber commented while applying mascara. "Thanks," Claire sighed. "I just got told I need to cover for Lena. I'm flying out and back to Lakeside Bay, still fighting for custody." "Huh," Claire gritted her teeth. "Mark's lawyer says my irregular schedule makes me unfit to be the primary caregiver." "While he's off on business trips, right?" Amber shook her head. "I need this job. I need the extra money." Claire tightened her uniform jacket. "Only got 3 hours of sleep, but I still have to act professional." "Just don't take it out on the passengers," Amber joked. Claire forced a smile. "I'm always the picture of professionalism." As passengers began boarding Pacific Jet Flight 703 to Lakeside Bay, Naomi was one of the first to be called. Her priority membership allowed her to board before even the first-class passengers. She walked down the jet bridge, nodding at the gate agent. Upon entering the plane, she greeted the head flight attendant, who did not return her smile. Naomi made her way to seat 1A, her usual spot, placed her small bag in the overhead compartment, and sat down, pulling out her tablet to review the presentation. Other passengers filed in. A few gave her a nod of acknowledgement. Most did not. Naomi had grown used to being the only person of color in first class. She focused on her work, occasionally looking up. Claire Benson entered the cabin from the back, holding a tablet to check the passenger list. She glanced down the first-row seats. Her eyes narrowed as she stopped beside Naomi's seat. "Excuse me, this section is for premium members. Are you sure you're in the right place?" Naomi looked up, her gaze calm despite the familiar sting of the question. Naomi Carter looked up, her voice calm yet clear. "I'm sitting in the right seat, seat 1A." She handed her boarding pass to Claire Benson, who frowned while inspecting it more thoroughly than necessary. "This card doesn't look like the usual Prestige Sapphire format," Claire remarked. "It was issued at the check-in counter," Naomi explained calmly. "Your system had a glitch, so they used a backup template." Claire pressed her lips together, her eyes still fixed on the card. "I need to verify this. Would you please come back to the gate with me?" A white man in his 60s, sitting in seat 1B, who had boarded without issue, turned to ask, "Is there a problem?" "Just a routine verification," Claire replied without looking at him. Naomi took a deep breath. "I verified this card twice at the gate and at security. I'm a premium member, and this is my assigned seat. Ma'am, I need to make sure everything is clear," Claire said, her voice beginning to rise. "We can't take off with any discrepancies." Naomi stood up, intending to hand her membership card over again, but as she reached for her wallet, Claire stepped forward, blocking her way, and unexpectedly placed her hand on Naomi's arm, pushing her back. "You're slowing down the boarding process for everyone else," Claire said. The touch stunned Naomi. In all the years of experiencing both subtle and overt discrimination, no one had ever physically touched her like that. In the second row, a teenage girl had already pulled out her phone and started recording. "Did you just push me?" Naomi asked, her voice low but sharp. "I was just assisting your movement," Claire said. "Now standing very close. Either you go back to the gate for verification or I'll call security." The entire cabin fell silent. Everyone watched, but no one intervened. The man in seat 1B pretended to focus on his newspaper. A woman in row 3 whispered something to her companion, and they both laughed. An older man muttered, "Must be a misunderstanding," but didn't dare look at Naomi. Claire gestured toward the exit. "You're causing a disturbance now." Naomi packed up her tablet and bag. Beneath the calm exterior, she felt the humiliation burning inside, but she didn't let anyone see her hurt. "I'll be speaking to your manager," she said quietly. "It's the captain, and he's preparing for takeoff," Claire said with a thin smile. "Now please step off the plane." Naomi walked off in silence, holding her posture strong as if she were walking on stage. Every eye was on her. The teenage girl continued filming. Outside the gate, Naomi stood still for a few seconds, breathing deeply to calm herself. She took out her phone and dialed a number. "This is Carter," she said when the other line picked up. "Activate cerulean code, full scale. No mercy." A brief silence. "Are you sure about this?" "Never been more sure," Naomi replied, then ended the call. She walked away from the gate without looking back. Her stride was steady, her gaze resolute. Only her nostrils, flaring slightly, betrayed the fire building inside. At the same time, the teenage girl was posting the video online. Her fingers typed quickly on the screen. "Woman kicked out of first class just for being black. Guess who she is?" Hashtags followed. Racism, flying while black, sky justice, Pacific jet drama. The flame had been lit, and within hours it would spread. Atlantis City, 2000. Naomi Carter, then just 10 years old, sat cross-legged in the middle of her bedroom, surrounded by a pile of calculators and sheets of paper filled with code she'd written herself. Her mother, Renee Carter, a history teacher and civil rights activist, stood in the doorway, her tired eyes full of pride. "What are you building this time, little engineer?" Renee asked. Naomi looked up, her eyes sparkling. "I've programmed these computers not only to do math, but to pass notes without the teachers noticing." Renee laughed. "And who's buying these message machines?" "Everyone $20 each. I made $240 this week." Renee's eyes widened. $240. What are you going to do with all that money?" Naomi became serious. "I'm saving it. One day, I'll build something big, something that will change everything." The memory faded. Back in the present, Naomi stood by the large glass window at Lumina Systems headquarters in Avalon. Point below her was the city she had conquered. Step by step, meeting by meeting, Lumina had revolutionized the environmental monitoring industry with advanced AI systems. Their smart transportation solutions had made Naomi a billionaire before the age of 35. The IPO documents are finally ready. Zara Patel, her chief of staff, said, placing her tablet on the conference table, "The legal team says this offering could be the biggest tech deal of the quarter." Naomi nodded, her eyes still focused on the window. "And the Pacific jet situation. The video has 3.2 million views now," Zara reported. "Their PR team is calling it an unfortunate misunderstanding. No one's figured out who you are yet, but they will soon enough," Naomi replied. "And when they do, what matters is what they'll do next." Naomi's reputation wasn't limited to her role as CEO of Lumina. Few knew she owned a portfolio of strategic investments across various industries. One of those Eclipse holdings held significant shares in dozens of smart transportation tech companies. Through shell companies, Naomi controlled nearly 8% of AeroConnect Global, the parent company of Pacific Jet. All of this had been built quietly, precisely like surgery, so she could change the world without being targeted. Naomi Carter remained standing silently by the large glass window, her gaze fixed on Avalon Point, bathed in the glow of the evening sun. Finally, she turned around, her voice firm. I need to connect with Representative Isabel Montoya. Secure line. No assistance. 20 minutes later, Naomi was speaking directly with Isabel, one of the most influential Latina politicians in Congress, and also a longtime close friend. I've seen the video, Carter, Isabel said without beating around the bush. It's you, isn't it? It's me. My God, are you all right? The one who needs to worry isn't me, Naomi replied calmly. I need your help. It's time to expose Pacific Jet's hiring practices and discrimination. Do you want to launch an official investigation? Not yet. First, we need the data. The news can wait. There was a brief silence on the line. You know, this isn't just about one flight attendant. You're targeting a system that's deeply embedded in the industry. I know, and that's exactly why. After hanging up, Naomi sent a brief message to a private number, noon tomorrow. The old cafe. It's time to talk about the aviation game. The next day, Naomi sat across from Dominic Ellis in a quiet corner of a small diner in Riverbend, an old neighborhood tucked away in the city. At 45, Dominic was one of the most successful black investment fund managers in America, known for his strategic takeovers as fast as his instincts. Are you really going to burn them all? Dominic asked as he cut into his steak. I'm not burning them, Naomi replied clearly. I'm demanding justice. They've burned my reputation and the reputations of thousands who don't have the means to fight back. Dominic nodded slowly. What do you need from me? Capital and silence. We'll quietly acquire enough shares to force them to change. All under the radar. They'll play dirty when they find out. Naomi smiled sharply. I'm counting on that. The dirtier they play, the easier it will be to gather evidence. Dominic stared at her for a long time before saying, I'm in. Send the details to my encrypted server. That evening, Naomi arrived at a repurposed warehouse on the outskirts of Delphi, looking shabby on the outside but secured with cutting-edge technology. She placed her hand on the hidden palm scanner embedded in the wall. The heavy door creaked open. Inside, surrounded by screens and blinking code, was Ezra Quinn. His messy red hair and scruffy beard made him look more like a college senior than a hacker who had served 3 years in prison for exposing security flaws in major corporations. Well, well, the famous CEO Naomi Carter visits my little hideout. Ezra chuckled, spinning his chair around. I need you. Naomi placed her bag on the table. It's time to repay the investment in the rehab program. I once funded. Ezra's smile vanished. It's about that video, isn't it? It's really... You, Naomi nodded. I need internal emails, training materials, incident reports, anything that shows a pattern of discrimination at Pacific Jet. That's not exactly legal. Discrimination isn't legal either, Naomi replied. I'm not asking you to hack. Just create a secure channel for insiders to report, protect their anonymity. Ezra studied her face. Is this personal for you? Anyone who's ever been pushed out just because they look different? This is personal. Ezra cracked his knuckles, his expression turning serious. For you, always ready. Let's get started. The next day at the Lumina office, Naomi flipped through a rejected proposal from 2 years ago, Altair Project, rejected contents, an AI system to optimize aircraft fuel, reduce emissions by 32% and save millions. Lumina had pitched it to Pacific Jet, and was rejected with the reasoning that the technology wasn't proven. 6 months later, a competitor with a less safe, more expensive solution was chosen instead. At the time, Naomi thought it was just business as usual. But now, reading the rejection letter again, she realized the ambiguous language hinted at something more cultural fit. "They didn't reject my technology," she muttered. "They rejected me." That evening, Naomi gathered her core team in the secure conference room. Present were Zara Patel, her trusted Chief of Staff Darius Lin, sharp General Counsel Kai Nakamura, quiet but brilliant. "Chief Technology Officer, I'm launching Operation Phoenix," Naomi declared, activating the encryption system in the room. "In the next 30 days, we will expose Pacific Jet's culture of discrimination and corruption and change this entire industry." She outlined the detailed plan: gather evidence, apply public pressure, leverage political relationships, and use financial power to create real change. This isn't just about one person being kicked off a plane. This is a fight for anyone who's ever been made to feel small. The team exchanged looks. Then Zara spoke on behalf of them all. "We're with you." The next morning, the first seed was planted. An anonymous source sent a video of Naomi being pushed off the plane, along with statistical data, to an aviation industry watchdog blog. The data showed that many people of color had been downgraded or forced off flights systematically. The article ended with a question: is this a one-off incident or a symptom of a widespread industry illness? By sunset, the hashtag #ABayTrongKaiThi exploded on Twitter. That evening, Naomi stood alone on the balcony of her penthouse. She gazed at the twinkling lights of Avalon Point below, thinking of her mother who had passed just before Lumina's first breakthrough. Naomi Carter had spent her entire life fighting for justice from the classroom to the courtroom. Before she passed away, she had one final piece of advice for her daughter: never let them make you feel small. Now, standing alone beneath the bright lights of Avalon Point, Naomi Carter's eyes sparkled with determination. She whispered into the night, "I won't, Mom. I'll make sure the whole world can't ignore us anymore." The fire burned quietly in her gaze. The battle had begun, and Naomi had never started a battle without intending to win. The next morning at Pacific Jet's headquarters, the executives held an emergency meeting in the crisis management room. The video of Naomi being pushed off the plane had surpassed 8 million views within hours. Social media was flooded with outrage. The hashtag #ABayTrongKaiThi was shared by both celebrities and politicians. The mainstream media had begun to weigh in. In the room, CEO Warren Langford sat silently, his eyes sharp. At 62, he had weathered many storms in the aviation industry, but this time something felt different. "Where's the official statement?" he asked, his voice cold. Carla Jensen, head of communications, pulled out the documents. "We'll emphasize our commitment to customer service and explain that this was a routine document verification incident, and the flight attendant, Warren asked Clare Benson, 10 years of experience, solid record. We'll say she was following procedure in a high-pressure situation." Warren nodded. "Release it. Let legal review it first." Less than an hour later, the statement appeared on the company website and platforms. "Pacific Jet is committed to treating all passengers with respect and dignity. Regarding the incident on Flight PJ401, our flight attendant followed routine verification procedures when the passenger could not provide sufficient documentation for first-class seating. Pacific Jet does not tolerate any behavior that affects flight safety. An internal investigation is underway, and appropriate actions will be taken if necessary." The statement only fueled the fire. Aggressive. "They're calling me aggressive," Naomi exclaimed as she read on her tablet. Beside her, Zara Patel poured her a cup of morning coffee. "They're panicking," Zara replied, "and they still don't know who you are." Naomi's phone buzzed. A message from Ezra. Cyber detective about to join the hunt. 3, 2, 1. Within minutes, Naomi's phone rang, non-stop. Somewhere online, someone had linked the woman in the video to the CEO of Lumina Systems. On Reddit, Twitter, and other platforms, another investigation began, this time targeting Clare Benson herself. Users dug through flight reviews and passenger complaints. They uncovered 3 previous incidents where passengers of color had complained of unfair treatment. All 3 complaints had never been taken seriously. One post read, "In 2019, a black doctor in first class was asked for documents 3 times. White passengers weren't asked. Flight attendant Clare Benson, Pacific Jet. Racism." Another, "My Indian cousin, an engineer, was interrogated about his upgrade ticket, had to call the captain, same woman." The online scrutiny accelerated. By noon, Claire's social media accounts were under intense examination, every post scrutinized. Though there was no clear evidence, it was noted that she only followed white celebrities. In the suburbs near Newbridge, Claire sat curled up on her couch, the curtains drawn tight, her eyes glued to her phone, which buzzed continuously. Her Instagram followers had increased 5-fold, but the comments were full of outrage. "Are you the racist flight attendant? Does pushing a black woman off the plane make you feel more powerful? Is this how Pacific Jet trains its staff?" Her hands shaking, Claire dialed the HR support line. "HR Kevin here. It's me, Clare Benson. I need help. People are saying horrible things. Someone even called my house." "We're aware of the situation," Kevin responded. "The union representative will contact you soon. In the meantime, you're not to speak to anyone, not media, not colleagues, not social media, but I need to speak out. Say nothing. Claire, the company will handle it." Just as she hung up, her phone rang again. It was her lawyer, Nathan Ford. "I've seen the video," Nathan said bluntly. "This is serious. Pacific Jet is turning you into a scapegoat. They said they'll handle it. They'll handle their part, not yours. In the statement, they've placed all the blame on the flight attendant. They're distancing themselves." Claire was left speechless. "What do I do now?" Silence. "Let me handle it." "But Claire—" Nathan paused. "We need to be honest about what really happened on that plane." As social media focused its attacks on Clare, Zara, Patel received a coffee invitation from a senior executive at Pacific Jet, Damon Keller. Though cautious, she agreed to meet him at a small cafe near Central Lake. Damon walked in, looking polished in his sharp suit with a friendly smile. "Thank you for taking the time, Ms. Patel. I know you're incredibly busy." Zara shook his hand. "How can I help Pacific Jet? Mr. Keller, call me Damon." He lowered his voice. "This meeting isn't entirely business." Zara raised an eyebrow, remaining silent. "I've been following your career for a long time. What you've done at Lumina is impressive, and your loyalty to Naomi very admirable. Thank you for meeting with me." Damon Keller smiled knowingly as he slid a business card across to Zara Patel. "I'll be blunt," he continued. "Aerofleet Continental is looking for a new CEO. The package includes stock options, a base salary of $950,000 plus bonuses." Zara raised an eyebrow. "And you're telling me this because I'd like to recommend you," Damon answered, his voice lowering. "The CEO is a close friend of mine, very generous. But I still want to stay with Lumina." Zara replied, cautious. Damon leaned forward. "Zara, may I call you that? You and I both know that Naomi's battle with Pacific Jet is going to get a lot messier. This offer is a way for you to gracefully bow out before you get too deeply involved." The implication was unmistakable. Zara kept her face neutral, calmly pulling out her phone and placing it on the table to record the entire conversation. "So you're offering me this position in exchange for—" What she asked, Damon's smile thinned. "Your influence. Naomi trusts you." If you simply say that this fight isn't worth it, everything will calm down. It will be better for all Pacific Jet, for you and for everyone. The offer is mutually beneficial," he emphasized. Zara stood up, taking her phone and bag back. "I truly appreciate it, Mr. Keller, but my loyalty can't be bought." Damon nodded, his smile fading, while Zara left the cafe with the recording intact. That evening, another bombshell erupted online. An anonymous whistleblower from within the aviation industry had leaked an internal chat log from Pacific Jet to the media. The documents revealed a coded system for discriminating against passengers based on race code 3: black women, Tango Delta, Muslim passengers, Sierra Lima, Latinx families. One supervisor's message read, "2 code, 3 passengers upgraded today. Watch behavior closely in the cabin." Another, Tango Delta, requesting prayer. Implement standard delay tactics. The internet exploded. There was no longer any doubt discrimination wasn't an isolated act. It was institutional. At that moment, Congresswoman Elena Solis seized the opportunity. Standing at the podium in front of the Capitol building alongside members of the Black and Latinx caucuses, she declared, "Recent events have revealed what people of color have long known, that discrimination in the transportation industry is not imagined. It is real, and it is systemic. Today, I am officially calling for a Senate hearing on racial discrimination in aviation, from hiring policies, passenger treatment, to corporate accountability." Though she didn't mention Naomi or Pacific Jet by name, the timing and context made it clear where the source of the issue lay. Wall Street didn't miss the signal. Before the market closed, Pacific Jet's stock dropped by 9%. Influential figures in the travel industry and several celebrities announced boycotts of the airline. What investors didn't see was the quiet groups amassing shares little by little, all silently linked to Malik Ames and Naomi Carter. At her suburban home in Eastbridge, Clare Benson sat having dinner with her 10-year-old daughter, Ella. The little girl quietly pushed her noodles around on her plate. "What's wrong, Ella?" Claire asked. "Kayla at school showed me a video today," Ella replied softly. "She said, 'You hate black people. Is that true?'" The question hit Claire like a punch to the gut. She wanted to explain that she was just following procedure, that Naomi didn't have the proper documentation. But looking into her daughter's innocent eyes, all the reasons felt meaningless. "It's complicated, sweetheart," Claire tried to say. "But is it true?" Ella asked again. Claire felt the shell around her heart crack. "I think I was wrong, Ella. A big mistake." That night, after Ella had gone to bed, Claire sat alone in the kitchen holding a glass of wine, staring at the picture of her daughter on the fridge. A message from Pacific Jet's legal department came through: "Mandatory meeting tomorrow morning. Do not admit fault regarding legal liabilities." Claire looked at the phone, then back at her daughter's picture. For the first time, she wondered if she had become the kind of person she once despised. At a tech workshop in Westview, Ezra Wynn worked through the night. Among the data files secretly provided by a Pacific Jet insider, one file left him stunned. A flight attendant training video. It started like any other standard safety training. But at minute 17, subject identifying potential troublemakers, instructor's voice. "Passengers who don't seem suited for first class. Remember to verify documents." The video shows a black man sitting in first class. "Passengers who seem nervous, especially women wearing hijabs," shows a Muslim woman. Ezra immediately sent the video to Naomi with the message, "Smoking gun. They're training attendants to discriminate." The next morning, Naomi Carter walked through Fairgate Airport, the same place she had been humiliated just days before. Today, she walked through with a different posture, full of authority, full of purpose. She wore a finely tailored black suit, her gaze steady. Behind her was Darius Wu, general counsel, two top civil rights lawyers, and three major journalists. The entire airport paused. Staff recognized her. A few passengers discreetly pulled out their phones to capture the moment. Naomi didn't care. She just walked forward steady, as if she knew exactly what she was doing and why. A few passengers pulled out their phones to record the moment Naomi Carter paid them no mind. Her gaze was firmly fixed on Pacific Jet's administrative area. This time she wasn't being pushed out. She was walking in, purposeful, confident. At the same time, inside her, Daily flashed a headline: Black female CEO was married to real estate felon. The article targeted Naomi's brief marriage to real estate developer Darren Ellis, who had been convicted of defrauding investors. What the article conveniently forgot to mention was that Naomi had been the one to uncover and expose the fraud, helping the authorities bust the entire operation and also ending her marriage. "They're starting to panic," Malik Ames remarked, placing the tablet down on the table in his investment firm's secure meeting room. "When they start attacking you personally, it means they're scared," Naomi replied. Taking a sip of water, "I saw this coming, but what I didn't expect was the knife in the back." This morning, Naomi had discovered that Elliot Sharp, a board member of Lumina and a close advisor for years, had leaked sensitive information to Pacific Jet's legal team. A mistakenly forwarded email to Naomi's CTO revealed that Elliot had disclosed her upcoming projects and counterattack strategies. "I've known him for 15 years, Naomi said, her voice low. "He attended my Harvard graduation, helped me raise the seed round. Does he have any ties to Pacific Jet?" Malik asked. "His fund manages their pension funds. They threatened to pull out unless he helped handle the Naomi problem." Malik shook his head. "Money and fear, two levers that control the world." "What about you, Malik? How's the pressure treating you?" Naomi asked. Malik let out a dry laugh. "Are you talking about the surprise tax audit 3 days after I started accumulating shares in Pacific Jet, or the regulators suddenly remembering the existence of my firm?" "They're targeting you because of me," Naomi whispered. "No," Malik interrupted. "They're targeting you because you chose to stand by me, and I wouldn't regret it." He looked directly into her eyes. "The question is, are you ready to deliver the killing blow? Because they're ready." Before Naomi could answer, her phone buzzed with an urgent message. She handed the screen to Malik. "Lumina has been hacked. Customer data may have been exposed. The campaign has begun," Naomi said, her voice darkening. A flood of memories came rushing back. Naomi, 12 years old, eagerly awaiting a field trip to the Science and Technology Museum in Helmsbridge. Her mother, Mia Carter, had saved up all summer so Naomi could attend. When the bus arrived, Langford. The teacher pulled Naomi aside with an apologetic look. "I'm sorry, Naomi. There's been a change in the group." "What change?" Naomi asked, still clutching her backpack tightly. "The museum has a policy: each group can only have one diverse student to maintain balance. All the other groups are already full." "You mean there can only be one black student in each group?" Naomi asked, her voice small but clear. The teacher couldn't meet her eyes. "I'm sorry, I don't make the rules." Naomi rode the city bus home, tears silently streaming down her face. As soon as she walked in the door, Mia Carter knew something was wrong. "What happened, sweetheart?" Naomi broke down, telling her mother about being excluded. Mia hugged her tightly, a mix of anger and sorrow in her eyes. "Listen to me, Naomi," she said, cupping her daughter's face in her hands. "One day you'll build your own bus, your own museum, and you'll make the rules." The memory faded. Naomi returned to the present. She had built her empire, but the old rules still weighed heavily on every corner of the system. It was time to change them, forever. At Pacific Jet's headquarters, Claire Benson sat in a meeting room with the company's lawyers and union representatives. The tension in the room was palpable. "You just need to stick to the script," the lawyer emphasized. "You followed protocol. The passenger didn't cooperate. You acted to maintain order." Claire hesitated. "But she wasn't uncooperative. She showed me her ticket." The lawyer furrowed his brow. "If you stray from the company's position, we can't protect you. This isn't just a personal incident anymore, it's a media crisis, and it could lead to a massive lawsuit." "So you're asking me to lie?" Claire asked softly. "We're asking you to stand with the team," the lawyer replied. "That woman is trying to destroy the airline, your job and your benefits, all over a small misunderstanding." After the meeting, Claire sat silently in her car in the parking lot, hands gripping the steering wheel, engine still off. The weight of the pressure felt suffocating, making it hard to breathe. She thought of Ella, of the mortgage, of the custody battle. Everything depended on keeping this job. In the rare moment of silence, sitting alone in her car, Claire Benson remembered the look in the eyes of the woman she had pushed off the plane, Naomi Carter, and how Naomi had maintained her composure, her calmness stronger than any anger. For the past few days, Claire had told herself she was just following protocol, but deep inside, the truth gnawed at her. She had judged the person by her appearance, and had physically handled a passenger, something she couldn't deny. With trembling fingers, Claire opened her phone, scrolling to the business card of Imani Thompson Lumina's legal representative, which had been given to her during the investigation. She typed a short message. "I'm Claire Benson. I'd like to speak privately. Meet at Lumina headquarters. No recordings." At the same time, in a data center in Queens, Jude Wilson discovered something even more horrifying than discrimination. While analyzing Pacific Jet's flight data, he noticed an abnormal pattern of early fuel dumps. When he cross-referenced this data with residential maps, the results left him speechless. 87% of fuel dumps occurred over neighborhoods populated by Black or Latinx communities. "They're not just kicking people off planes," Jude said to Naomi over an encrypted call. "They're dumping industrial waste on our communities." Naomi frowned. "You're sure this isn't a coincidence?" "Definitely. There's an internal email confirming that after the new FAA regulations tightened up, they intentionally adjusted fuel dump coordinates to avoid white suburbs." Naomi sighed. "Put everything in the investigation file, and Jude, get the names of everyone involved." Later that afternoon, Lumina's cybersecurity team discovered a direct attack on their AI system, the very technology platform that had made their name. "They're targeting our core environmental data," Victor Chen, the CTO, said during the emergency meeting. "The source of the attack is TechFear Solutions." Rennell Washington, head of legal, added the tech contractor for Pacific Jet. Naomi remained composed, but her eyes burned with intensity. "Activate all defense protocols and prepare to strike back." "Strike back? What do you mean?" Victor asked. "Gather evidence. Every time they breach, they leave a trail. Document everything. This isn't just tech theft. This is part of the chain of actions we're building." As the team dispersed to handle the crisis, Imani called with an update. "Claire Benson wants to meet. No recordings, no lawyers." Naomi paused for a moment. "Set it up. Just me, you and her." "Are you sure?" Imani asked. "No, but sometimes empathy is more important than wisdom." That evening, Naomi held a closed-door meeting at her penthouse. Around the dining table were 12 people of color working in the aviation industry, from pilots, flight attendants, engineers, to ground staff. Each person shared their story. A Black female pilot talked about constantly being mistaken for a flight attendant. A Latinx engineer spoke of safety reports being ignored until a white colleague repeated them. A South Asian flight attendant was always assigned to deal with the difficult passengers of her race. "I've been flying for 22 years," said William Foster, a seasoned captain. "Still, there are people who look at me and demand a different flight. I'm always told I'm too cold." Janet Michaels, a Caribbean flight attendant, shared, "Even though my white colleague acts the same and she's praised for being professional, Naomi listened, asked questions, took notes, connecting the behavioral patterns. A bigger picture emerged. This wasn't just about discrimination, it was a quiet system of exclusion for those who were different. What you all shared today," Naomi said as the meeting concluded, "will help reshape this entire industry. This isn't just my fight. This is a fight for all of us." After everyone left, Naomi sat alone among the piles of notes. Her phone rang. Breaking news. Black female CEO called the Rosa Parks of the skies. In Oakmere, an artist painted a 3-story mural of Naomi's face with the words, "Fly above it, rise above prejudice." The smear campaigns were drowned by the growing wave of support. Justice for Naomi. Boycott Pacific Jet. Naomi walked into the bathroom, washed her face, and looked into the mirror. Her reflection was weary but resolute. She opened the drawer and pulled out a letter with her mother's old logo, kept since Mia Carter passed away. Sitting at the vanity, she wrote, "Mom, today I feel your presence more than ever. This fight is not just mine, it's yours, it's ours, and it's for all those who've been forced to prove they belong in spaces they were never meant to be. They tried to make me small, just as you warned, but instead I'm growing stronger. I am becoming more than just a CEO, more than just a passenger who was wronged. I am becoming a symbol, and that terrifies me because symbols aren't allowed to be weak." Naomi Carter folded the letter, gently, placed it on the table. She kissed the paper, then whispered into the empty room, "This is no longer just my fight, Mom. In fact, it never was." Early in the morning, rain gently tapped on the window of a small meeting room in a discreet hotel in Brooklyn. Naomi sat still, relaxed in posture but with sharp eyes. The door opened. Imani Thompson entered with Clare Benson. Clare looked very different, no longer the proud flight attendant who had pushed Naomi off the plane. Her hair was tied back neatly, no makeup, eyes darkened with sleepless nights. Her hands tightly gripped her purse. "Thank you for meeting with me, Clare," said her voice barely above a whisper. Naomi gestured to the chair across from her. "Please have a seat." Clare placed a manila envelope on the table. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. "I didn't expect you to," Clare began. "Remain calm," Naomi suggested. "Calm," Clare corrected. "I thought you'd be angrier, more upset. If I yelled and demanded justice, would that make you feel better?" Naomi asked, her tone. Even Clare's eyes welled up. "No, nothing would make it easier." She pushed the envelope toward Naomi. "This is Pacific Jet's training material. The real version, not the public one. What they gave us after official training." Naomi opened the envelope-colored slides, handwritten notes, and a USB drive. One document was titled Passenger Management Strategies, a strategy for managing passengers with highlighted behavior traits to watch out for tightly linked to racial bias. "This material, it's designed to target minorities," Naomi observed. "They say it's to ensure safety and customer satisfaction," Clare replied, wiping her eyes. "No mention of race, just behavior profiles." But we all understood the implication, and over time I started seeing exactly what they wanted me to see. I believed what they trained me to believe. Naomi continued reading the document, her expression unchanged. "How long has this program been in place?" "Officially 3 years, but that culture, it's always been there. Now they just have paper to prove it." Clare hesitated. "There's more internal chats, emails, recordings of meetings. I started gathering them after what happened with you." "Why?" Naomi looked up. Meeting her gaze, Claire lowered her eyes. "My daughter," she asked me, "Mom, do you hate black people?" A tear slid down Claire's cheek. I couldn't lie to her, and when I admitted it, I couldn't lie to myself anymore. "What do you want from me?" Naomi asked, her voice low. "I don't expect forgiveness. I'm not asking for legal protection. I just want—" Claire looked up. "I want my daughter to see that when we realize we were wrong, really wrong, we have to act, no matter the cost." Naomi watched her intently. "You know, don't you? They'll destroy you over this." Claire nodded. "They've already started, but they don't control the story anymore." "You do." Naomi gently pushed the envelope back toward Claire. "I don't need a copy," she said. "I want you to be the one to expose the truth. Not for me, but because the truth needs to be told from the inside." "Expose it," Claire gasped. "Pacific Jet will fire me. The union will abandon me. I'll never work in this industry again." "Maybe," Naomi replied, "but is your daughter's respect worth that price?" 2 days later, Claire Benson sat across from Diane Foster, the country's most famous news anchor. The red light blinked on. The cameras began rolling. "Tonight, an exclusive interview," Diane began. "The flight attendant involved in the racial discrimination scandal at Pacific Jet speaks out." "Why choose this moment?" Diane asked. Claire took a deep breath. "Because I was wrong, and the company that trained me was even more wrong." She recounted every detail, the coded language, the veiled terminology, the procedures targeting black passengers. Claire presented the documents, recordings, emails, all verified. When Diane asked about Naomi, I pushed a woman just because she didn't fit my idea of what first class should look like. That was my fault, but I'll tell you the truth. The system trained us to be the front line of discrimination. In the luxurious wood-paneled office, Gerald Langston, CEO of Pacific Jet, watched the program with cold eyes. His neatly combed silver hair, impeccably tailored suit, and clenched jaw gave away the growing frustration. Naomi's spark was no longer a lone flame. It had become a movement. When the news segment ended, Maxwell Graves, CEO of Pacific Jet, turned off the TV. Expressionless, he turned to the crisis management team. "Release an apology statement. Standard template about diversity commitment and internal review." Brian Wells, the head of legal, hesitated, "Sir, with the new allegations, we should be more specific." "Just do it," Maxwell snapped, "and call Senator Donald Spence. It's time to use political capital." As everyone left the room, Maxwell picked up the secure phone. "Andrew," he said into the receiver, "the Benson situation is escalating. Activate the counterattack plan. Dig up Carter's past. Leak it to the press. I want her destroyed by tomorrow morning." Across the city, Naomi Carter was reviewing the interview with her close team. Imani Thompson turned off the TV. "She did well," Rennell Washington commented. "Sincere, direct, no signs of being scripted." It shifted the narrative from an isolated incident to a systemic issue. Naomi nodded. The phone rang. An unfamiliar number. "Naomi Carter," she answered. "This is Robera Kane, a captain at Pacific Jet for 27 years, and a Vietnam War veteran." Naomi put it on speaker. "How can I help, Captain?" "No, it's I who can help you. I've seen whistleblowers get silenced, but I've got 3 years left until retirement. I've got nothing to lose." "I'm listening," Naomi said. "The story Benson told is just the surface. I have falsified safety data, altered maintenance reports, and shockingly poor fuel quality records." "Can you verify it?" Naomi asked. "More than verify, I can help your technicians access the internal systems," Jude Imani whispered. "Are you ready to coordinate with our team?" Naomi asked. "That's why I'm calling. It's time to clean up." 3 days later, Naomi hosted a live discussion at Lumina's headquarters. Sitting beside her were Clare Benson, Captain Kane, a union representative, black business owners, and legal scholars. We're not just talking about an airline, we're talking about an industry riddled with bias. She announced a bold plan. We're calling it New Altitude, not just because we aim higher, but because we're elevating the entire industry to a new height. Social media exploded with the hashtag #NewAltitudePacific. Jet's stock continued to plummet. By the close of the market, the value had dropped 24% from before the scandal. In a workshop in Queens, Jude Wilson was glued to his computer. With access granted by Captain Kane, he was scanning through the data. "Shit," Jude whispered, then immediately called Naomi. "You need to see this. The AI system named Vulture was designed to flag and reassign passengers based on their names, specifically those that sounded minority. This is why you've been randomly selected for checks all this time. The system has been identifying me by my name." Naomi exhaled. "Exactly. And worse, they once denied this system existed, under oath before Congress. Perjury," Naomi murmured. "This is a political bombshell." At a private club, Maxwell Graves sat with Senator Donald Spence. Both sipped whiskey in silence. "Donald, Sky Air has funded your campaigns for 20 years. Now I need help to delay the hearings." Spence frowned. "Public opinion is swinging towards Carter. It's not going to be easy. I'm offering $2 million through legal channels." What they didn't know was that Melissa Carter, an aide to Congressman Gutierrez, was recording the entire conversation from the kitchen. The next morning, a major news outlet dropped a headline: "Naomi Carter profited from offshore accounts linked to her ex-husband's fraud scheme." Unfazed, Naomi released a full 10-year tax record, her investments in Lumina, and detailed her charitable programs, including initiatives helping dozens of black women break into the tech industry. After the smear campaign failed spectacularly, Naomi Carter's image was further elevated. The original article was taken down with an official apology. Evening news broadcasts portrayed her as a model of integrity and leadership. That evening, Naomi called an urgent meeting with Malik Ayers and the strategy team. "It's time to make our boldest move. Yet," she declared, "we are going to take over the logistics technology division of Pacific Jet's parent company. That's their crown jewel." Malik frowned. "They won't sell. They have no choice," Naomi responded. "Stocks are plummeting. Federal investigations are looming, and the board needs liquidity and a way to wash their hands of the scandal." "You don't intend to destroy them?" Rennell Washington realized. "You want to reform them from within," Naomi smiled. "We don't need to tear down the system. We replace it, piece by piece." The marble hallways of the Capitol echoed with footsteps and whispers. The public and media flocked to the first Senate hearing proposed by Senator Lena Gutierrez, which had now become a national event. Naomi Carter, Clare Benson, Captain Robera Kane, and Jude Wilson raised their hands to swear. In this hearing, the committee chair, Senator Martha Williams, began, "Is not just about one company or one passenger. It's about justice in the transportation industry. For all people." For 4 hours, witnesses shared their stories. Naomi told her own, placing it in the larger context of systemic discrimination. Clare exposed the biased training culture. Captain Kane publicly disclosed falsified safety records. Jude explained the Vulture algorithm, an AI system that racially profiles based on names and geographic areas. "Based on your assessment, how widespread is this issue in the aviation industry?" Senator Williams asked Naomi. Based on research and employee testimonies, Naomi replied, "Most major airlines have varying degrees of it, but Pacific Jet's is sophisticated, systematic, and well-documented." While the hearing continued, Imani Thompson quietly distributed documents to each committee member. Included were A slide presentation on profit strategies through discrimination, selective refund policies, a list of underserved service areas, all tied to minority communities. Senator William Bennett, who typically supported businesses, raised a document. Mr. Wilson, this document shows Pacific Jet flagged certain zip codes to provide lower priority in customer service. Is that correct? Yes, sir, Jude confirmed. And those zip codes predominantly cover Black and Latinx areas. This isn't just poor business, this is Jim Crow in the sky. The phrase Jim Crow in the sky instantly went viral worldwide. In his office, Maxwell Graves sat still staring at the screen. The executive team urgently gathered for a meeting. Vulture is our biggest vulnerability. Brian Wells, head of legal, said, "We denied its existence under oath before Congress. That's perjury. The board is demanding your resignation." Heather Mills, head of HR, informed him. "After 20 years, I'm the scapegoat," Maxwell asked coldly. "It's you or the entire company," Heather replied, "and possibly both." 3 hours later, Pacific Jet released a press statement. Maxwell Graves has resigned as CEO effective immediately. Thomas Reed, Chief Operating Officer, will serve as interim CEO while the company cooperates with the investigation. However, the statement did not mention that Graves's personal assistant, Linda Parker, was secretly deleting sensitive files from the company servers. Late in the evening, as Linda Parker was shredding documents in the office paper. Shredder, she had no idea that every action was being recorded. The security camera system had been discreetly tampered with by Jude Wilson beforehand, and the footage was sent directly to Senator Gutierrez's office and the Department of Justice. The next morning, Linda received a subpoena. All devices and documents in Maxwell Graves' office were sealed for investigation. At the same time, Naomi Carter faced a new threat. On her way back from a strategy meeting about the New Altitude project, she noticed a black SUV following her, maintaining a steady distance, occasionally flashing its headlights. As she neared the building where she lived, the vehicle passed her slowly. A few minutes later, her phone buzzed. Anonymous message, "Back off, or you'll be next." Naomi immediately forwarded the message to Rennell Washington and Malik Ayers and instructed the building's security team to enhance surveillance. The next morning, she hired a personal security team. Not out of fear, but out of necessity, this battle was too important to be threatened into defeat. 2 weeks after the Senate hearing, Naomi received the news she had been waiting for. The Federal Aviation Administration had granted New Altitude its operating license. This was the result of an expedited yet thorough review process, partly due to the shocking revelations of Pacific Jet's falsified safety records. The New Altitude plan revolutionized the aviation industry: 100% carbon-neutral operations, transparent ticket pricing with no hidden fees, a fair algorithm designed by Jude Wilson to combat bias in customer service. The airline's slogan, "Fly Above." The bias. At the very airport terminal where she had once been kicked off a flight, Naomi declared, "Today marks a new era in aviation. New Altitude is not just an airline, this is a promise." The news spread quickly, and the unexpected happened. A wave of Pacific Jet employees, from technicians, flight attendants to senior managers, collectively submitted their resignation letters. Many cited ethics as their reason and expressed a desire to join New Altitude. Even more surprising was the new position of Clare Benson, the flight attendant who had once pushed Naomi off the plane. After completing an intensive training program, she became a diversity, equity, and inclusion specialist at New Altitude. "We do not ignore mistakes," Naomi said. "We learn from them." In Pacific Jet's final act, the airline launched a legal assault. They filed a lawsuit against Naomi and Lumina for corporate espionage, misappropriation of confidential information, interference with business relationships. Their argument: Naomi had exploited her relationship with the airline as a customer and partner to gather information and then released it to destroy them. However, Malik's legal team had already prepared all the documentation proving that the entire data came from whistleblowers, public records, legal analysis. At the preliminary hearing, the judge took less than an hour to dismiss the lawsuit. Pacific Jet was also ordered to pay $68 million in damages for intentionally suing to intimidate the whistleblower. As the airline sank deeper, Naomi had one final important meeting with Elliot Hart, her former mentor and the man who had betrayed her. In a quiet corner of the Harvard Club, where they had once raised glasses to celebrate their graduation, Elliot sat across from Naomi, his hair now silver, his eyes tired. "I know I don't deserve forgiveness," he said. "When they threatened to pull the pension fund from my management firm, I was scared." Naomi wasn't angry, but she spoke clearly. "You lost more than just a student, you lost your legacy. The students you once inspired. Now they question that trust." She stood up, her gaze no longer sad but resolute. "There are consequences, Elliot, that an apology can never erase." The final blow came when three major airline unions representing pilots, flight attendants, and ground staff all publicly declared their support for New Altitude. They chose New Altitude because of transparent policies that prioritize employees, a true commitment to diversity and equity, a safe, ethical work environment. Naomi insisted on hiring through an anonymous recruitment process, a retraining program for communities historically excluded from the aviation industry. 6 months after Clare Benson had pushed Naomi Carter off Pacific Jet's flight, the world had changed in ways no one could have anticipated. After the Senate hearing, shocking data leaks, and 3 consecutive quarters of losses, Pacific Jet announced its closure. The Federal Aviation Administration revoked their operating license, citing systemic ethical violations and serious safety risks. The once iconic airline was now liquidating its assets to pay off debts and settle lawsuits. The departure gate, where Naomi had once been humiliated, now stood empty, the Pacific Jet sign removed. Its future remained unclear until New Altitude announced that they would hold their inaugural flight right there. In her penthouse in Miami, Maxwell, Graves silently watched the news about the airline's collapse. A glass of whiskey in hand, he muttered to the air, "Well played, no calls, no allies, only the ongoing perjury investigation closing in and loneliness filling the room." At New Altitude's new headquarters, a building fully powered by renewable energy, Naomi stood by the window looking out at the airport, the place where it all began, now transformed by her "Are you ready?" Imani Thompson asked. "For the launch," Naomi replied. "No," Imani smiled. "For everything that comes after. You've changed an entire industry. Now everyone will expect you to continue leading the charge for further change." Naomi turned back to her close friend. "My mom used to say I'd build my own bus, but now I know she thought it would be too small." She gestured toward the airport. "I'm not just building a bus. I'm building wings for everyone who was once told they couldn't fly." That morning, the sun bathed Logan International Airport in golden light, the former home of Pacific Jet, now shining in the silver teal of New Altitude. The air was buzzing with excitement as the crowd filled Terminal D. Passengers, reporters, and representatives from other airlines gathered to witness a historic moment. New Altitude's first flight from Boston to San Francisco, Naomi Carter walked up to the boarding gate in a perfectly tailored teal suit, her hair elegantly twisted. Her eyes sparkled. This was not just the launch of a company, but the embodiment of a promise. No longer cold, impersonal seats or sterile advertising screens. Instead, there were sustainable materials, artwork from local Black artists, and transparent digital boards displaying the airline's commitments, fairness, transparency, and respect for customers. As the time for takeoff neared, Naomi stepped up to the podium. "Good morning," she began, her voice warm and steady. "Today is not just the first flight of New Altitude, it is a new chapter in the aviation industry. This journey started with a push." She paused, letting that truth resonate in the air. "But what they used to bring me down is what has lifted me higher than ever before." The audience erupted in applause. They were no longer just passengers, they were witnesses to a revolution. Today, we are not just boarding a plane, we are rising above outdated systems. We prove that fairness and excellence do not exclude each other, they depend on each other. Instead of segregating boarding by ticket class, New Altitude prioritized based on actual needs. Families with young children, people with disabilities, and those needing more time, all boarded first. Regardless of class, Naomi personally greeted each passenger. From business people to students, from the elderly to children, all were welcomed with the same warmth. A little black girl around 7 years old, holding her mother's hand, timidly approached. "Are you really the owner of the whole plane?" Her small voice barely audible in the noise. Naomi crouched down, her gaze gentle. "I'm Naomi, and yes, I own it. My name's Zoe. My mom showed me a picture of you in a magazine. She said, 'You're changing the world.'" Naomi smiled. "I'm trying. But do you know what's even more important than changing the world?" Zoe shook her head, her eyes wide with curiosity. "It's when your generation, you know that you can do it too." When all passengers were seated, Naomi walked through the jet bridge. Standing at the cockpit door was Captain Roberta Caney, her silver hair uniform neat and her Vietnam War veteran pin shining on her chest. "Ready to make history, Ms. Carter," she beamed. Naomi placed her hand on the aircraft doorframe, took a deep breath, and nodded. "Ready to fly higher than ever before." "Ready as ever, Captain Kane." Naomi smiled. "Let's show them what a true flight looks like." New Altitude's first flight proceeded with an oddly peaceful atmosphere. There was no invisible tension that often lingers on regular flights. The flight attendants, including former Pacific Jet staff, moved with genuine warmth. The in-flight entertainment system showcased films and music from diverse creators, many of whom had never had the opportunity to feature in major commercial spaces. Even the meals served were from Black-owned businesses along the flight route, a quiet statement that representation doesn't stop at words. When the plane touched down in San Francisco, the cabin erupted in spontaneous applause. Passengers weren't applauding for luxurious amenities, but for the respect they felt in every small detail. That evening, Naomi sat in her hotel room scrolling through the news coverage. Headlines dominated New Altitude sets, new standards for the aviation industry. An airline built on justice officially takes off. She stopped at a strange email with the subject line, "A letter from Zoe Baker, 7 years old." Inside was a photo of a rainbow-colored handwritten letter. "Dear Naomi, thank you for letting me and my mom fly on your plane. My mom helped me write this letter. I want to fly as high as you someday. You showed me that I can do it. I drew a picture for you. You're a superhero who makes planes fair for everyone. Love, Zoe." Beneath the letter was a crayon drawing. A brown-skinned woman in a cape standing on a plane with smiling faces inside. For the first time since everything had happened, Naomi burst into tears, not from hurt, not from exhaustion, but from the overwhelming emotions. She knew she had reached the next generation. 2 weeks later, New Altitude's first training session began. Over 20,000 applicants for 500 positions, mostly industry experts eager to join this historic shift. At the Atlanta headquarters, in a modern classroom, Clare Benson stood before a new class of flight attendants, hair tied, simply wearing her signature teal blazer. Her hands trembled slightly as she held the tablet, but her voice was firm. My name is Clare Benson, and I may be the last person who should be standing here." She paused, then continued. "8 months ago, I pushed a black woman off a plane because in my mind she didn't fit the image of a first-class passenger. That woman was Naomi Carter." The class fell silent, though they had heard the story hearing. Claire admit it was something else. "I'm not here to seek forgiveness. I'm here because the biases that drove my actions that day were not just personal faults. They are the result of a broken system, and if we don't understand it, we will continue to repeat it." Throughout the lesson, Claire used her own mistake to analyze how unconscious bias is created and perpetuated in customer service environments. After class, a young black trainee approached her. "I wasn't sure how I'd feel." "Learning from you," the young woman whispered. "But because you faced your mistakes, I applied here. This is the first airline I've seen that truly takes fairness seriously." "What's your name?" "Claire." "Asked." "Jasmine?" "Taylor." "Jasmine, I hope to earn your trust, not with words, but with consistent action." Across town, in a new technology office building, Jude Wilson began a new chapter. Naomi had appointed him as the chief ethics officer for New Altitude. Today, he welcomed the tech team consisting of programmers, ethicists, data experts from all ethnicities, genders, and backgrounds. "Welcome to the team that's taking down Vulture." Jude smiled. "We're not building systems to replace humans. We're building systems that affirm human dignity." He pointed to the screens displaying complex algorithms. Every line of code will be scrutinized. Every data set will be analyzed for implicit bias. And most importantly, every decision the system makes must be explainable. A young programmer raised her hand. "But is there such a thing as perfect fairness in algorithms? Can we ever completely eliminate bias?" Jude smiled. "Great question. The answer is no. And because there is no perfection, we must be transparent and accountable. Fairness doesn't come from indifference. It comes from the courage to adjust every day. And so the story that began with a push became a movement, soaring. Not only changing the way we fly, but changing the way we see one another. We don't claim perfection. We commit to vigilance. Justice isn't in denying the past, but in refusing to let it determine the future." Jude Wilson. In Jude's office, the tech team was deep in discussion about improving the new AI system. Jude quietly observed until his gaze met Naomi, standing in the doorway. She nodded at him, a nod full of trust. Jude smiled softly, then turned his attention back to the wall behind him, where hung his official pardon letter signed, "Thanks to Naomi's advocacy. She saw me not through my mistakes, but through my potential. That's true justice." In Washington, D.C. Congresswoman Lena Gutierrez announced the Fair Transportation Act, a comprehensive bill aimed at eliminating discrimination in all public transportation. From a woman who dared to stand up against injustice, Lena spoke to hundreds of reporters. Naomi Carter sparked a movement for fairness on every road across America. At New Altitude headquarters, Naomi continued her journey. She announced the Altitude Access Program, an initiative to provide free flights and career mentoring in aviation and technology to underprivileged children of color. "This isn't charity. This is a solid runway for talent to soar," Naomi said. "Call it reparations if you want. I call it an investment in the talents the industry has overlooked for too long." By the end of autumn, what was once Pacific Jet's Gate 7 at JFK had been transformed into the Equality in Aviation Training Center, a modern facility for the next generation of black engineers, flight attendants, and pilots. Naomi led a group of high school students on a tour. Marcus Johnson, 17, shyly said, "Before today, I never thought I could work in this industry." "Because I never saw anyone who looked like me in those positions," Naomi smiled. "That's exactly why you're here. Sometimes you have to see the possibility before you can pursue it." At New Altitude's first quarterly gala, Naomi made an unexpected announcement. Imani Lewis was officially appointed as Chief Operating Officer, COO. Imani is not just my right hand, she is the moral compass for this journey. The entire staff stood and applauded. Imani moved, hugged Naomi, and then spoke. I'm not just joining a company, I've become part of a movement that is changing an entire industry. I accept this responsibility with humility and a determination to continue. What we've started, Naomi's reputation grew with the press, dubbing her the pioneer of the skies. Many film and media platforms invited her to make documentaries, write memoirs. Naomi declined most of them. This isn't a movie. This is a movement, and movements require sustainability, not a fleeting moment. On the anniversary of her mother's death, Naomi spent the day in Atlanta. She visited the grave of Maya Carter, a teacher activist, and the first mother to teach her that dignity is non-negotiable. Naomi placed a bouquet of fresh flowers by the grave. She took out the boarding pass from New Altitude's first flight from her wallet and placed it on the tombstone. Mom, you told me I would build my own bus, but I've done more than that. Mom, I've built wings and brought thousands with me as we soar. 5 years later at Atlanta International Airport's International Terminal, a group of middle school students gathered excitedly. Their uniforms had the words, "Future Pilots." The 12-year-old tour guide pointed to a portrait hanging in the hallway. Beneath it was an engraved gold inscription, Naomi Carter, the woman who turned the sky into a space for fairness. The boy turned back to the group and asked, "Do you all know why we're getting this tour today?" A brown-skinned girl raised her hand because a woman who was pushed off a plane instead of stepping back chose to soar, and the applause erupted, not from a random crowd, but from the children of the future. "Remember, kids," the teacher called out, "today we're not just visiting an airport, we're going to a place that has made history." A young girl standing at the back of the group raised her hand. "Ms. Washington, are we going to meet Ms. Naomi Carter today? She's very busy." "Destiny," the teacher smiled, "but everything here is a reflection of her vision." As the group of students went through security, a smooth experience thanks to New Altitude's upgraded system. They had no idea the woman watching them from the nearby cafe was Naomi Carter. Naomi, now 40 years old, with streaks of silver in her hair and eyes marked by the creases of time, a testament to both challenge and triumph. From a response to injustice, Naomi had created a wave of global change, forcing the aviation industry to reform according to the model of fairness she led. And today, she wasn't on a business trip. She was flying to Boston to teach her first course at Harvard Business School. Ethics in Business Power. A message from her assistant arrived. "The class is full. Over 200 students have signed up." Naomi smiled. The next generation of leaders was ready to learn a new approach, one that centers on people, not just profit. In Chicago, Rachel Monroe received the Airline Equality Award for her efforts to overhaul training programs. The presenter was none other than Emma, her daughter, now a confident 15-year-old. "My mom taught me that courage isn't about never making mistakes, it's about facing them and fixing them. 5 years ago, my mom could have been destroyed, but instead of falling, she turned that fall into the foundation for the most important work of her life." In Seattle, Jude Wilson spoke to a group of formerly incarcerated individuals, now trainees at the Second Chance Tech organization. He founded, "Society may label you with a past, but it's up to you to decide your future. 5 years ago, I was an ex-convict no one would hire. Today, I'm a leader in ethical tech innovation implemented globally. In Atlanta, the memorial flight for Maya Carter took off. This annual free flight was dedicated to scholars researching equality in public transportation. Naomi had named the flight after her mother, a powerful tribute to the woman who sowed the seeds of justice within her. In Manhattan, Malik Ayers completed the final draft of his book, Investing to Change the Sky. Naomi taught me the difference between power and purpose. He wrote, I spent my life accumulating power, forgetting why I started. She showed me sustainable profit doesn't come from exploitation. It comes from creating value, especially in places that have been overlooked. 3 months later, on a bright spring morning, Naomi stepped off at New Altitude's private airport in Atlanta. Today was her final flight as CEO. From now on, the reins of leadership would officially pass to Imani Lewis, the loyal companion who had now become her successor. Naomi stood on the tarmac, the gentle breeze ruffling her silver-streaked hair. In the distance, the plane with the symbol of justice's wings waited. My mom used to tell me I'd build my own bus. I've done more than that. I've made wings, and now I fly, but I don't fly alone. With her final farewell flight, Naomi Carter was about to fulfill a personal dream, piloting her own plane after a year of completing her commercial pilot's license. Captain Roberta Caney, now preparing for retirement, would serve as the co-pilot for this journey. I never thought I'd witness this day. Roberta chuckled softly in the cockpit. A woman of color, CEO, flying her own airline. We've come a long way, Naomi replied, her gaze warm. But the journey is far from over. The short flight from Atlanta to Charleston and back carried a special group of passengers, the first-generation staff of New Altitude allies, from the early struggles and a few lucky winners from a commemorative contest. No one on board could miss the profound significance of the journey. The woman once pushed off a plane, now the one commanding the flight. In seat 1A, an 8-year-old girl watched intently toward the cockpit. As Naomi stepped out to greet the passengers, the girl tugged on her mother's hand and whispered just loud enough for Naomi to hear, "Mom, is that the woman who changed the world?" Naomi smiled and gave the girl a playful wink before silently returning to the cockpit. That simple question lingered in her mind for the rest of the flight. Many years later, New Altitude expanded globally, connecting major cities in Africa, Asia, and South America. What started as an airline born from injustice had become a network that connected the forgotten communities. The Altitude Bridge Fund, established by Naomi with her personal assets, provided funding and mentorship to Black creators worldwide. The fund's motto, "Build runways where others see only barriers." 10 years after the events that began it all, Naomi stood by the window of her office at New Altitude's global headquarters. Before her was the airport where she had once been pushed off, and the modern campus where thousands of people were now realizing her vision. She had flown over 50 million passengers, the policies she initiated had become industry standards, and those she had once mentored had now become the leaders of the new generation. Even the one who had pushed her off the plane was now driving reform in the airline industry. As Naomi watched the planes with the teal-tail symbol take off in the sunlight, she felt a deep sense of fulfillment. This journey had never been about revenge. It was never about getting back justice. It was about change, not just in an industry, but in the very concept of limits. In the distance, a plane soared into the bright blue sky. That journey, which had started with a push, had become a historic takeoff. From a humiliating shove, she built an entire airline, one where human dignity is no longer a privilege, but the standard. She didn't just speak out for herself. She paved the way for millions of others to take flight. Not through anger, not through hatred, but through resilience, intellect, and a heart that never accepted injustice as the norm. If you've ever been looked down upon, pushed out of where you rightfully belong, remember, you don't need anyone's permission to rise. Build your own wings, and when you soar, don't forget to look down and reach out to those still struggling below. If this story touched your heart, help us spread this light of hope to many more. Like the video if you felt moved, share. If you want others to find this inspiration, and subscribe to the channel to continue following stories that reach deep into the soul.